Well, welcome back. It's another day. I had a few days hiatus, had a few things that I needed to take care of, and obstacles continually get in the way. But I decided to go ahead and finish, continue, no, maybe not finish, but continue talking about, the two accounts of creation, the two flood stories that are clearly apparent in in the Hebrew Bible, in the Christian Bible, what they would consider the Old Testament, earliest possible, verses here in Genesis. And so just to review quickly, the flood stories continue two separate traditions, not one coherent story. They've been weaved together by a later redactor. One story, which has a clear story that runs, for a few chapters here, several chapters, mentioning Yahweh. Eventually, the Elohist gives way to to using Yahweh, or the redactors eventually incorporate these stories in a little bit cleaner fashion. Although Baden, who I mentioned, does a much more sophisticated job of actually looking at four different sources. There's a Deuteronomist, priestly writers, Elohist, Yahwist. There are actually four authors that are pretty distinct, and Baden has the knowledge of Hebrew and the scholarly background to make that argument much more comprehensively than I am. And so I'm going to continue this. In the last recording, I ended with the question: does something have to be factual to be true? So this was where in my own scholarship in '91, as an undergrad, if you call it scholarship, my own learning, I was able to hold on. I was able to hold on to something and not completely throw things out, And so what my professor used at that time was like an allegory or a metaphor. For instance, you might have like a car wreck at a stop sign, and there's a collision in the intersection, and you'll get two different accounts, right, of that of what happened. You'll always get two different perspectives. And so that was kind of the argument that he made, and I think that was to kind of assuage that threat, that immediate threat that, gosh, if something's not factual, it's not true. And I'd like to continue that theme, and I'd like to continue, and I'm borrowing from him, borrowing this example, but I found this to be very true in my life as I reflect back on this next story from Genesis. So I'm not going to share the screen. It's very short. It takes just a couple of minutes to read. But it's the Tower of Babel. So if you go to Genesis chapter 11, you'll find the first part of that chapter talks about the Tower of Babel. And so to summarize, I'll kind of look at the text here. And so the earth had one language, and people migrated from the east. They came upon a plain in Shinar and settled there. And then they started saying, let's make bricks and burn them thoroughly, and they made mortar, and they were able to build themselves a city and a tower with its tops in heaven, right? And so in the Middle East, in this time frame, when we think of the word tower, we think of something like this, right? That's stacked up, right? The Leaning Tower of Pisa. We think about the Eiffel Tower. We could think about, the Empire State Building as a tower, right? That's our tower image. In these ages, they didn't have that kind of technology to build straight up. And so what did a tower look like to the ancient Mesopotamians? A tower looked much like a tower in Mesoamerica or South America. It looked like a pyramid. That was a tower. And so for And so for a while in my own, I'd say for several years, I kind of, because it's talking about they had one language and they're building a tower, and and so let us make a name for ourselves. Um, but this is continuing the story of Yahweh, because then Yahweh came down to see the city and the tower which the mortals had built. And Yahweh said, they're one people and they all have one language. This is the beginning of what they will do. Nothing will be impossible for them now. So let us let us go down. Again, this allusion to other people hanging out with Yahweh or Elohim. Let us go down and confuse their language, so they will not understand one another's speech. So Yahweh scattered them all over the earth, and they left off building the city, and therefore it was called Babel or Babel, uh, because Yahweh confused the language and scattered them. So, on a truth level, well, here's why people speak different languages, right? But there are other things that you can pull from this story. Um, I encourage you to read it. Uh, so you could pull that, and I tried to pull something really literal from this story. I tried to pull, well, I think that since the towers were pyramids, maybe this was the tower, the Great Tower of Giza. Maybe this was actually when the Hebrews were in Egypt, and so because the Great Pyramid has that flat top and doesn't look like it's finished. So it was a great, one thing about a tower back then is it's this great technological achievement. And you think about what the Egyptians achieved with their pyramids and their homage to their deceased and their pharaohs and the powerful folks, and even their belief in in eternity and everlasting life and life after death. I'd say more life after death, and linking that with the stars. And I've got a copy of the Egyptian Book of the Dead over there, just because I got into this for a while trying to link the two. I couldn't really find any links. That was a effort and futility and and kind of ridiculousness in my own. I wasn't in school then. I was just kind of trying to entertain myself in between bouts of scholastic activity. But anyway, a tower is a technological achievement. And so you can look at this story in a different way. And so people tell stories to get a point across, generally, like the story of Three Little Pigs, right? We build straw and build a straw house, gets blown down, build your house out of bricks, it withstands. Little Boy Who Cried Wolf, don't tell lies, because eventually nobody's going to believe you. That's the truth of some of those stories. The rabbit, the hare, and the turtle and the hare. Um, Slow and steady wins the race. These fairy tales, these fables. You're like, oh, fables. You're talking about sacred text. These are not fables. So considering that story and not taking it literally, not insisting on it being literal. So you have this technological achievement, and then you have people that are just they can't agree on how to, and then they can't. Technological advancement leads to confusion, leads to divisiveness. I can think of no better truth from that story than what's evidenced in social media. So the truth from that story, technological advancement leads to confusion and division. And so if you look at what's happened with social media over the past 12 years, where we've gone from 1 million to 1 billion to 2 billion users of Facebook, impact on elections, and really where we are in particular in the United States at this moment with competing visions of reality where people can't even accept basic facts together. And you have this, just like the Tower of Babel, you have social media where I can post my picture and I can become a god because anybody on the planet who has Facebook, 2 billion users, can see me and hit like. And it's like, I have this, I am like a god. If I'm on Facebook, right, or you're on social media, it exists without you. People pass away and you're still there. It's this in remembrance of me. Where has that ever been available in human history, where you have the power to reach out across the world or across the country and communicate and they see your face? This is a technological advancement, and other people influence you. And then it comes up here and you're invested in it. It's not just a screen on TV where you're listening to Tom Brokaw or, you know, Dan Rather, whoever it might be. It's in the palm of your hand and you're in charge of the information. You are a god, right? That's like, they will become like gods like us, the Tower of Babel. And thus they were thrown down because they became too powerful. There's some truth to that. So I'm asking you, because there are a lot of important things that happen and wisdoms, eternal. I will go so far as to say there are eternal wisdoms in this book, and because it looks at 3,000 years of human culture and is documented that way. For folks that speak English, who, you know, the King James Bible has driven our English, helped given it meaning and helped disseminate it. It's really interwoven. Now, hopefully get a chance to discuss some of that in future talks, but I don't want to throw this out. And so don't ever take it as if I'm on here talking about, well, it's not factual. I don't want to throw it out. It's too important. Anyway, hope that makes sense. I'll be back with more biblical stuff next recording.